So what is algebra? Algebra is really about restoration and balance. And I'll explain what I mean by that. We may think about algebra as basically solving an equation for a variable, or in other words, finding out the missing part. Suppose we have something like this: 5 plus x equals 7. It should be pretty clear just by looking at it that the missing number here that when we add to 5 gives us 7 is 2. We can kind of figure this out mentally, but in doing so, even though we're finding a variable, we're not really doing algebra. Algebra is when we actually follow strict techniques to restore balance to an equation. In fact, that's what the word algebra means. It's derived from It's derived from an Arabic word meaning something very similar to restoration and balance. So whenever you're doing algebra, it's good to have this idea of a balance or a scale not far from your mind. And algebra is about keeping the scale balanced and not tilting to the left or to the right. So in order to keep it balanced, we always have to do the same thing to both sides of the equation. We can consider the equation, basically the equal sign of the equation, the middle point around which everything must balance. I can visualize that, like, here's my equal sign, and I want everything on the left and the right to stay in balance or to stay equal. So to keep an equation like the one I have up here balanced, I need to do the same thing to both sides of the equation. If I subtract 5 from the left-hand side of my equation, I also have to subtract 5 from the right-hand side. By subtracting the same thing from each side of the equation, I maintain my balance, and that leaves me with x, 5 minus 5 cancels out, and that leaves me with x equals 7 minus 5, which is 2. Again, we probably didn't really need algebra to solve this particular equation, but it's a good example of how it works. I did the same thing to each side, and I maintained my balance, and I restored the balance by doing the same thing to both sides of the equation. So when you're doing algebra, never have this picture of a scale too far out of your mind. Whenever you do something to the left side of the equation, you must do the same thing to the right side of the equation.